Gable Steveson is not ready for MMA. Gable Steveson might be one of the most dangerous wrestlers to ever step into combat sports. But the idea that he's ready for MMA right now is one of the most unrealistic hype trains we've ever seen in the heavyweight division. At just 21 years old, Gable Steveson won the Olympic gold medal, NCAA dominance, freakish athleticism, and a level of speed and agility heavyweights simply aren't supposed to have. It's easy to see why people get excited. Combine that with WWE crossover fame and suddenly fans are calling him the next Brock Lesnar, or even a Brock and Daniel Cormier hybrid. That's not hype. It's a pressure bubble, ready to explode. And that's the problem. Because Gable isn't being treated like a prospect. He's being treated like a chosen one who's supposed to walk into the UFC and dominate. That's incredibly dangerous for a fighter who has never actually been in a real MMA fight. Here's the truth people forget. The wrestling to MMA transition is brutal, even for the greatest wrestlers alive. Wrestling gives you control. Wrestling gives you dominance in one dimension. But MMA is not wrestling. MMA is striking. Submissions, angles, timing, footwork, fatigue, and chaos. You can dominate the NCAA circuit. You can win Olympic gold. But none of that guarantees survival in a cage with 4-ounce gloves and a heavyweight trying to knock your head into the rafters. Just look at the history. Ben Askren was one of the best pure wrestlers ever and still looked lost in striking exchanges. Curtis Blades, an incredible wrestler, still got knocked out multiple times while learning MMA timing against elite heavyweights. That doesn't mean they're bad fighters. It means wrestling does not automatically translate. And that brings us to the biggest red flag of all, heavyweight power. This is the division where one mistake ends your night, and sometimes your career. Heavyweights hit differently. When a 205-pound fighter throws a punch, it hurts. When a 265-pound fighter throws once, it's a life-changing event. Gable has never been punched, kicked, elbowed, or kneed by men who hit like Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis, Sergey Pavlovich, or even the mid-tier dudes who hit like they're trying to demolish a brick wall. But let's talk about the holes in his game no one wants to mention. He has unproven striking, 0 cage time, no demonstrated submission defense, unknown cardio in MMA scrambles, and very limited footage of hard sparring. His wrestling may be elite, but we've seen countless wrestlers get exposed when they're forced into prolonged striking exchanges, or when their takedowns fail. Wrestling cardio is not MMA cardio. Wrestling explosiveness is not MMA explosiveness. And wrestling chain sequences are not the same as chain wrestling mixed with kicks, punches, elbows, and submissions. Yet people talk about him like he's ready for Cyril Gane, or Tom Aspinall, or even someone like Jailton Almeida. This kind of hype is not protecting him. It's setting him up for failure. And the psychological pressure makes it even worse. When you're being labeled the next Brock Lesnar, that comes with expectations Brock himself couldn't handle at times. The difference is Brock walked into the UFC at 285 pounds of experience, power, and genuine fear factor. Gable is walking in with pure wrestling credentials and celebrity hype. He isn't being allowed to start slow. The UFC wants a star, fans want a phenom, media wants a storyline. And the moment he stumbles, even once, people will turn on him, the same way they turned on other hyped prospects. Heavyweights don't get the luxury of slow, patient development. One loss and suddenly you're exposed, overrated, and not UFC material. And that brings us to the central truth of this entire video. Gable Steveson might fail because he relies too heavily on wrestling. If he enters MMA thinking he can out-athlete or out-scramble people the way he did on the mat, he's in for a harsh awakening. MMA requires timing, setup, defense, and accuracy. Shoots become predictable. Footwork becomes a liability. And a fatigue hits instantly when you're reacting to strikes you've never seen before. But I'm not here just to bury the guy, because there is a flip side. And it's a big one. If Gable Steveson takes his time, if he humbles himself to the learning curve, if he builds real striking, real cage wrestling, real MMA grappling, and the ability to take and recover from punishment, he could be an absolute monster. He's insanely athletic. His wrestling foundation is world-class, his explosiveness is freakish, and he's only 23 years old. If he develops properly, he genuinely could become elite. But if he rushes, if fans pressure him, if the UFC pushes him too fast, this story ends the same way so many others have. Hype, pressure, debut, disaster. So now the question is yours. Is Gable Steveson the next big heavyweight problem? Or the next hype train heading straight for a wall?